Well, Bren, welcome to Action Reloaded. It is awesome to have you here, and we're here to talk about life after fighting, which seems like your pet project, which you wrote and directed.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Jeff, and happy to be here.
First question I'm going to ask is a question that's probably you've been plagued with over like press tour for this. So what inspired you to write the story?
I started in COVID, I guess, when we were all in lockdown. Originally, I was in lockdown in LA, and then we came back to Australia, and then we ended up being in lockdown here. So um, having that time, that was the opportunity to start writing stuff. But what it really inspired me was the lack of excitement that I would get that from things that were coming my way. The scripts that were coming to me were they were either heavy action and then had no heart or soul, or and because I came from a classically trained background as an actor, and most of the stuff has actually been non-martial arts, then I get some movies that were heavy dramas, and they'd interest me, but more often than not they would fall over. But a lot of the action stuff that was coming was kind of it was just, I would read them and just be really kind of disappointed. So when COVID and everything happened, I thought, let's try and bring some good stories and good drama, and marry that with the action, because in Australia we're really known for our strong dramatic movies. So I was thinking, if I could bring the drama that Australia is known for and marry that with the high level action that I know I could do, then that would be something that I'd get excited over. And it wasn't coming from anywhere else. Those scripts weren't finding me, if they existed at all. But and I'm sure they do, they just didn't come to me. But yeah, so I kind of took it in my own hands, and I had some people around me who really believed in me and pushed me. My wife, for one, my business partner, Navid, some other close friends, other directors, and DOPs, and they said, you need to do this. And they pushed me and they encouraged me to do it. And right now, Jeff, we have about 3 scripts in Life After Fighting, and it was probably the 3rd one that I'd written, but it seemed the most viable one and doable one for our first film, which is under the banner of Spinning Plates.
And you also directed it. What was it like, sort of directing and starring it? Was that challenging for you?
Yeah, look, I'm laughing because I know how tired and exhausted I was. Look, I'm not going to lie; it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I never set out to direct this film. I spoke to some directors and whatnot, and particularly one director who was a close friend, and they said to me, no, you have to direct this. And I said, apart from a short movie, I've never really directed anything. He goes, yeah, but you work with actors all the time. I said, yeah, because I'm an acting teacher as well. He said, I've seen you direct actors and you can do that very well. And action, because on the last ship, you were pretty much calling the shots with all your fight scenes. And I was like, yeah. And he said, no one's going to understand this as well as you do. And again, support from my wife, from my business partner, Navid, from other friends who were directors and DOPs. They pushed me. They said, you have to direct this. So it wasn't something I set out to do, Jeff. It just kind of all happened. And I'm really, really glad it did. And as I said, it was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. I was exhausted mentally, physically, yeah, in every way. But yeah, it was certainly an experience. And I'm glad I did it, because I didn't actually have to navigate around anyone else. I just got to make the movie I wanted to do. I got to work with the actors and through rehearsals, flesh out the performances and the way we wanted these characters to go. And even for myself with my stunt team and all that. And we had a great DOP, Shane Parsons, who was just coming out and rehearsing with us constantly. So yeah, as much as I said, repeating myself, as it was the hardest thing that I've ever done, it was also the most fulfilling, most enjoyable, and I'm really, really happy with what we ended up with.
And not to mention the fight scenes in this movie are unbelievable. Um, I read on Net Movie Database, so it's like sort of, anyone can edit these pages. So I just need to ask, is it true that nothing is sped up?
No, nothing is sped up. We were me and my stunt team. Most of my stunt team were not. Well, yeah, the five core guys, the five group of guys that are my core stunt team, they're my students. So I know what they're capable of. I've trained them since they were kids. Now they're all young adults in their 20s, and we worked hard. We trained every week for months on end. Not only did we work the fight scenes and work out the choreography, we then trained it so we could perform it at full speed without even blinking an eye. So we knew it was in our bodies. And what would happen, Jeff, too, is like some of those hand exchanges, the rhythm, we were so used to each other that an extra punch would come in or an extra up down movement would come in, which wasn't actually in the original choreography. But in some of the takes that we had kind of had varying differences. Like sometimes it'd be an extra punch or an extra knee or a high, low, high. And it would just happen organically. And that was a new discovery for me. And that had never happened in anything I've ever done before, because fight scenes are quickly worked. You don't have much time. And through this process, because we were able to spend so much time and we knew each other's rhythm so well, that spontaneous extra choreography, extra strikes were thrown in, and they were just blended in, and we kept going. It's almost like in the Filipino martial arts, we do something called hubad, where it's like a rhythm, boom, boom. You can go from punching to chopping to elbows, and you just change and you go, and you're just in tune with your partner, and you just react accordingly. It almost felt like that. And a lot of the takes we used have additional, excuse me, additional strikes added to the original choreography, but they weren't planned. They just happened in the moment there. And as a matter of fact, if you've watched it in cinema, see, the movie goes for us here in Australia when we shot it, because we shot it on 25 frames per second. Okay. So the movie went for 2 hours, actually 1 hour, 57 minutes without the credits. And then when it got to the States, what we've been seeing is the movie now goes for 126 minutes. And we're like, how did this happen? And I only found out the other day, but when they do the conversion to like a DCP for the cinema and whatnot, and converting it over to the States, it has to be converted to 24 frames per second. This is all technical stuff that I'm getting my head around. So what happened, it made the movie like 4% longer. So I spoke to the editor, and I said, because he's pretty well versed in all the technical stuff, and I said to him, does that actually make our fight scenes slower? And he said, technically, yes. So I can promise you our fight scenes weren't sped up. And even though the people in the States and whatnot, and I might be for the same for the UK, I mean, it's ever so slightly, but it's actually 4% slower than what we were actually going. So I was like, oh, okay. But, you know, some of the guys in there, the professional fighters, you know, two of them are actually, there's my son and my nephew in my stunt team as well. So we move fast. Speed has always been something that we work on, and being able to execute fight choreography at that speed. One of the main reasons we were able to go, I'm repeating myself again, go at that speed was because of the time that we put into the rehearsals. We put months and months into it. It wasn't just like, oh, let's work it out and go. No, because if we did that, we would not have been able to generate the speed and efficiency that we did. We were able to perform it at that level because of the months and months of rehearsal.
They come across brilliant, and your speed at 4% slower, it's very fast.
Yeah, look, I mean, even when I go back to the days of fight science, and you know, a lot of people were doing the speed tests and stuff. And now I don't want to sound like an egomaniac, but my speed was, you know, quite good, even with all the tests and stuff that we did on fight sites. It was always the fastest. You know, it's just something. Even when I was a 6-year-old, my first karate instructor, he nicknamed me the thrashing machine, and I never knew why he called me that. And it was because I would always finish my kicks and punches before everyone else. But you know, I just, you know, I've got a good degree of fast twitch muscle, fibers that, been blessed with from God. Yeah, I guess I'm just lucky. But, without the hard work and without the constant training to develop that, it wouldn't have been anything. But speed is something that I work on. Even now, as I'm getting older, I still work on my speed. And one of the ways I do that is sometimes I do whole sessions where I'm not kicking solid targets. It might be pool noodles, it might be the leaves on a tree, and a lot of shadow sparring, shadow boxing, shadow kicking. Those are the things that keep you fast. I think if you're constantly kicking heavy bags and tie pads, which we do as well, it's not like we don't do that. But if it's that all the time, I feel like for me, that makes me and my students slower. So we try and balance that out with solid targets and also a lot of shadow and loose targets. I think that's what facilitates and makes sure the speed maintains itself at a certain level with martial arts.
Then out of all these fight scenes, what was the most complex sort of to put together? That finale in itself, it just looks tiresome just watching it.
That finale, God, that took a while to film. I think it took about 2 weeks in total to film. And then halfway through, Jeff, I tore my hip. I went down for a takedown and I was like, ah. And when I got up, I couldn't walk, but I had to finish the day. So I don't think I've told this to anyone before, but what I got this whole roll of tape, like strapping tape with a bit, and it was right up in my glute and in my hip, and I put the whole roll of tape and I taped it up really, really tight, almost cutting off my circulation. And then I had some hand movements and some pushes and stuff to do, and I just finished the day. And then after that, in true Jackie Chan fashion, another person who I love, how he would, he's broken his leg and all the accidents and stuff that he went through, and then you have to come back and finish the film. So that hit took me about 4 weeks to heal, and then we came back and we finished the rest of that finale scene and tried to get it all done. But two major injuries. I had a torn hamstring, which I guess I shouldn't say major, but it's still, we had to rearrange shooting and whatnot with the fight scenes early on. I think that was the second week. I tore my hamstring, and then when we got to the end of the shoot during the finale fights, I tore my hip bone. So, if you compare that to Jackie Chan, it's absolutely nothing, because I'm sure Jeff, right? All the jumps that he does and the things that he's broken and what he's put himself through. I mean, like a hamstring and a tore hip is like, baby steps compared to what he's been through. But it was still enough to, shuffle up and cause rescheduling in the shooting. But hey, we worked it out and got through it.
Then you really did showcase all the different types of martial arts. Every fight scene was very detailed, and sort of like you made sure you showcased every move. The way loads of fight scenes now have loads of cuts, so you can go from an arm lock into a headlock, and it all just flows into one. Whereas you sort of show how you grapple, how you like. If you were to slow it down, you could actually use it as like a tutorial for, like, for instance, jujitsu. You really could.
Yeah. I look. I really appreciate that you can see that, Jeff. That for the people that can see it like yourself, and they can just really like appreciate what's happening, because not everyone can, and people don't know what they don't know. So for the people that love martial arts and can see the complexity and what we're showing and the effort and the beauty that's in the choreography and in the martial arts, because to me martial arts is beautiful. And when someone sees that, I think that's the highest compliment you can give me and my stunt guys. So thank you for seeing that and for noting that. But yeah, that's exactly what we were trying to do. We were trying to pull the camera back, capture the techniques, capture the beauty and the motion of the way it's executed at a high level. In different scenarios. And yeah, we've got our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we've got our Taekwondo, we've got our Muay Thai, we've got some of the Filipino martial arts, some of the trapping from Jeet Kune Do. And they're all used in different areas and different aspects, but they're also, there's almost a seamless integration of it all, so they kind of fall together. And that was our objective, because it's my philosophy now. I don't call myself like a taekwondo guy or a Muay Thai guy or a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. I like to call me and my students and team, we martial artists, and we bring all those things together when we train and when we teach. And I think it was very important that we showed a seamless integration of all of that in our fight scenes, because it's our philosophy of the way we live through our martial arts. So yeah, it was very important that we showed that, and for the people that can identify it, we got a lot of appreciation for you. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out, mate.
And another thing I noticed as well was you sort of put something in there very subtly that not many martial arts movies do. You showed the whole respect of martial arts, like the whole Gojo fight against the champion, and the when the two fellas come in to challenge you show the whole respect in it. Like if it was another martial arts movie, they would have just tore them apart in the gym, and that would have been it. But you showed the whole sort of respect side to it, which was really good.
I wanted to I wanted to give a true representation of what a real martial arts school is like. Look, I love Cobra Kai as much as the next. It's a lot of fun, but it's a little unrealistic in terms of what a real martial arts school is like. But hey, I love it. It's fun, and they have their places. But Life After Fighting was a bit more of a serious drama, and the school was like a character in this movie. I wanted
Yeah.
it to be a character. I wanted to show a true representation of the way we train in the martial arts school, what it's like at the beginning of the movie, where instructors are just training on a Sunday night together, keeping their skills sharp. As instructors have a responsibility to make sure their skills are at the highest level if they're going to be teaching people. So I wanted to show the instructors training privately together. I wanted to show the class atmosphere. I wanted to show if a situation did occur in a martial arts class, first and foremost, we would just try and diffuse it and ask them to leave. But in Life After Fighting, Alex has actually no choice, because the guy turns and starts throwing punches and kicks at him. And then when we go over to the Ario fight, when everyone leaves, that's a bit of a representation of what it's like for combat athletes. There's something about in writing, whether it's TV or film, people tend to write former combat athletes or soldiers as robots. They have no emotion. They're just one like dimensional, this and that. And they might give them a little, opportunity here and there to show that they're human, but very much more often than not, they're written like robots. And there's a lot of face pulling and snarling and anger and F you, this and that. But in reality, behind closed doors, combat athletes, they're human, just like anyone. They cry, they laugh, they're happy. Their pain comes from sometimes not achieving what they want to achieve in the combat sports. Sometimes when they're on a run and they're on top of the world, they then lose, and they can lose their title, or something in their life they can lose, and they spiral out of control for whatever reasons. And it's devastating for them. For Alex, it was devastating because of the fact, he had to leave his girlfriend because he couldn't give her children. For Ario, it's devastating because no one respects him as a true champion, because he never got to fight Alex, and people are always comparing them to them. So they've got these different things going on in their lives. And Alex is also at a loss because, two little girls have been taken, and there's nothing he can do. He's not a superhero. He's a normal guy who's just a combat athlete. So he's at a loss. He doesn't know what to do. Ario turns up, and they talk about it. And Ario knows that he threw his last fight, and he just looks at him, and he's ashamed, but he's like also guilty about it too. Ario, he knows Ario's pain, and there's just like this common respect. And then away from any bright lights, away from any money, away from anything, it comes down to like the true martial spirit of just two warriors saying, okay, let's fight. And even when they fight, they honor the rules, because the way Alex fights at the end, he starts through the progression of the fights, and he starts like by knocking people out, choking them out, to end up to changing to becoming pretty much murdering people, because that's the only way they're going to stop. But with the Ario fight, they've both got enough respect through the martial arts and through the sports side of things, that they honor it and they just fight each other according to what the MMA rules would be. So yeah, that was a really long-winded answer I gave you, Jeff, but I think it was very important to me as Bren and me as the writer and the director, to try and get an honest, true story across that honors real martial arts schools, that honors the real way of teaching martial arts, honors the combat athletes who tirelessly put their heart, soul, and families through everything in order to hopefully one day become a world champion. And for a lot of them, they never get there, and that weighs heavy on them emotionally and physically. So I wanted to honor, all of that: combat athletes, martial arts schools, martial artists, in a way that I don't feel has been done enough in other movies.
Yeah, I agree. The way everything is portrayed in here is so relatable because coming from Taekwondo myself, everything that was in there, I was just touching upon, and then also another side note, you know how I know the fight scenes are brilliant in it? You find yourself flinching every now and again, and that's right, you're invested. There's some
uh,
movies where the fight scenes are going on and you can sit there and you're just watching away. But see, once you start flinching and start twitching a bit, you're in there.
that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that, Jeff. And look, we've had we had our official premiere, but before that we had another premiere in a different state, and then we had another. So we had like 3 in total. The middle one was the official one, but in all 3 of them, Jeff, people were like, and I've never ever experienced anything like this. Apart from the raid when I watched that in LA. I have to say that too. But to have that happen to my film, where people were clapping and cheering, and at the last screening, the part where Alex and Milan, they both fall on the ground, and he's just like kind of had beaten up a bit.
Yeah.
Some guy absolutely lost his nut, and he was screaming, "Get up, Alex! Get up!" Like, was at the top of his lungs. And then if that wasn't enough, he was on the left side of the cinema. And then once he started screaming, some guy on the right side of the cinema started screaming, "Get up!" And then it was like it just ignited something in the whole audience. And then, because there was about over 400 people at this one. And so when he starts getting up, everyone just starts applauding, "Yeah!" and screaming, and "Yeah, yeah." And it was just, I'm sitting there and I've got goosebumps from this, and I'm like, oh, wow. I'm just like, wow. I mean, what more could you ask for? It was so surreal. And I was just thinking, and I think that's the equivalent to like what you were saying when you're watching it and you're like, oh, you're moving and just stuff like that. Sometimes, I mean, and we've all got different, different gauges within us too. So, but these 2 guys, and it wasn't even just a little bit, Jeff. The guy was like screaming at the top of his lungs. So look, it was flattering. It was awesome. It just made me and my stunt team and the other actors, it just was fantastic, mate. It was I don't even know if I'm doing it justice by the way I'm explaining it, but man, it was a good feeling. But all 3 of those screenings, we had similar effects. People were clapping and cheering, and yeah, it's just it was a great feeling, mate. It was great.
And the character of Alex goes through it, like in the finale, he does go through the motions. As you said, he's knocking everyone out, but they just keep coming back and they keep coming back. And there's a scene after you kill first person, and you give the gun away, and then you go into the hallway and your character's standing there nearly vomiting, looking at the person down the stairs, trying to get the blood off your hands. And it goes to show that like Alex was basically just a man who was pushed too far, which I loved. He portrayed it to a T.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And look, that was important to me, because he's struggling. He's trying to do the right thing, and then he knows that they're going to come in. He's trying to get Terry back, and then he first starts fighting, and as we said before, he's just fighting to potentially knock them out or put them to sleep or whatnot. But then he gets up into the stairwell and he encounters the knife guy. fights the knife guy, throws him, but that's a complete accident. He sees the knife has stabbed him, and he's like, all right, the guy's dead, and he's still like on fight mode almost. So he's not too affected by it. He's like, all right, well, there's an accident. I didn't kill him. And then he gets upstairs, gunshot, boom, gets the gun to Cassie. But before that, the doorknob. That guy is the first guy where Alex crosses the line, and he murders him. So Alex like literally murders someone, and it's definitely not by accident. It's willing, and he just goes to the end and stabs him to death. Gives the gun to Samantha, leaves, and then if you see, he can't even look at him as he walks past him after coming out from the office, and he can't even look at him, and he goes to turn the corner, and he sees the other dead guy, the knife guy, and then bang, just as you described, that's when it hits him. He's like, what have I done? And he looks at his hands, and there's blood on his hands, and he tries to get it off, but because he's got blood on his hands now, there's like a nice metaphor there, and it's kind of not coming off. And then he rests his head, and then he hears, and then he realizes, okay, I've gone this far. I know how far I have to go to keep them safe. And then he comes downstairs, and even then he's still holding back a little bit, and fights Milan again. The other guys come through. He's still fighting them because he puts one to sleep, and the other one kicks him through the windows, pushes him through the windows, and then he starts moving through the reception. And that's, again, the second time where he kills someone. And then he moves into the next dojo, cracks a neck, and he realizes that for them to stop, he has to kill them. And here's the thing, what always bugged me with movies. You would see them, and someone would, they get like a punch or something, and they'd be knocked out for hours for the entire movie, and they don't ever get back up. But, these guys are all mercenaries. They're all soldiers. And one thing I know, I used to have a student in LA who was a Navy SEAL, and no matter how many times you'd hit him or how hard you'd hit him, he just would never quit. You could ring his bell and he'd be like, whoa, hang on. Whoa. But as soon as that spinning stopped, he'd go again. And I also remember a guy, we were doing jiu-jitsu, and I had a DAS choke, and he actually went out, and he went limp because he didn't tap. And and then within about 4 seconds, he woke up and he goes, oh, did I go out? I said, yeah, you okay? He goes, yeah. And he goes, oh, keep going. And then we just kept going. And those two things always stuck with me as a bit of a lesson, and just to deviate for a moment, in boxing, someone gets their bell rang, they don't get up for 10 seconds and they might be knocked out. But then after the 10-second count, after a couple of minutes, they're back on their feet, they're okay. In the UFC, someone might get choked out unconscious, or they might get tapped out, or they might get knocked out, but then within a few minutes, they're back on their feet and they're okay. So with these guys, they're all, mercenaries. They're all former soldiers. And they might get knocked out, but in reality, they're going to be awake again in a few minutes. And do you think these soldiers are going to go, oh, no, I don't want no more? No, they're going to get up. Okay, let's get back to it. So to me, I think that's a little more realistic than just knocking them out and then they're knocked out for the next, 5-6 hours, because that wouldn't be the case. In boxing, we recover after they've got 10 seconds to recover. And sometimes they keep fighting after they've virtually been knocked out. UFC is the same thing. And even if they do lose the match by the designated time standard or time frame or stoppage from the referee, they're back on their feet and they're okay within a few minutes. So it was very important that, to me, that's more realistic. If you're against warriors and they're awake again in 3 or 5 minutes, they're coming back for you, and I know that from just guys that I've trained with, so to me, that was important. So I just thought I'd share that.
And each fight scene is different and unique. It's never a rinse and repeat sort of fight scene. You put different moves, different techniques in every fight scene. What was the sort of hardest fight scene to put together? Would it have been where you fight the champion fella? That was very technical, and you were both on par. He was like the world champion, you were the former world champ. So you couldn't really just go in and annihilate him like you did some of the bad guys. it seemed like there had to be more sort of effort go into that to make it look realistic.
Yeah. Look, the character Ario, who's played by Eddie Arizola, who was actually a student of mine when I was in LA, and he owns Lobos Boxing Gym in Los Angeles at the moment, and he's a great martial artist and great boxer, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy as well, so we actually worked out the choreography, and I sent it to him because he was over in the States, and he came over, as a favor to play that part, and he had about 3 days to learn it. And believe it or not, that was one of the fights I had to do with a torn hamstring. So I was a little bit limited. There were a few other cool things that I had to kind of work around from the original choreography, but yeah, look, he was a world champion. He was at the top of his game. He was the best in the division at the moment. So, and Alex was, a little bit older, gone through surgeries and whatnot, and look, was still training. We knew that, so it was always about the training for him. So when they fought, we had to make it very sport orientated, but obviously Ario was just an amazing athlete. He was an amazing martial artist because he's the current world champion. And it doesn't help that he's 6'6", like Eddie, like actual Eddie's bloody tall, So it kind of also another bit of a homage to Bruce Lee with the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bruce kind of fighting thing, because of the height difference. But Eddie's super tall guy and he moves well for his height, and I think it was the perfect. It was just cool, perfect synergy, like big, like he was like this big spider type thing, and Alex is more kind of the not as tall but more stockier kind of thing. So it was this two, and it looks like it's two giants like coming into of opposing forces coming together, and it was pretty technical, but as I said, we kept it very MMA sports style. Had a good mix of mixed martial arts. We didn't put like too much of the trapping of like the Filipino martial arts or the kung fu type stuff. We kept it very much in the world of a few taekwondo kicks, a lot of Muay Thai with the elbows and the knees, a lot of wrestling, a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I think we honored that MMA style fight because that's the arena where they would have faced each other if they were fighting within a sporting organization. So we wanted to keep it true to that style. So I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And I'm sure he was okay with me saying it, but he went back pretty black and blue because we were like a lot of the kicks, we were like, thing, and he's like, but he's such a good guy and he's a good martial artist, and I've got a lot of gratitude for him coming out to do that, and because some of those shots, especially the kicks to the arms, the kicks to the legs, you're doing it 7-8 takes at a time, and they touch. I mean, you might not be kicking full power, but they're touching, and getting touched over and over again starts to
Thing after a
yeah,
while.
starts to hurt, get some wear and tear on him. Yeah,
I had seen like loads of reviews comparing this to John Wick, and I was like, right, okay,
we've
okay.
we've had quite a few people come out and say that. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, anyone that's listening, my perception of it, um, don't go with John Wick because the way I would see John Wick would be he does his moves, grapples, and he'll break your shit. But it's more about his gun work, I think, than his martial arts. This here, and you touched upon it when you mentioned Bruce there. This is the finale itself is like Game of Death. You've
Yeah,
got all the different stages, like you yourself, you go through the stage of let's beat them up, let's knock them out, and then you go to like the kill stage, and that's sort of like Goda in Game of Death, the way it originally was. That's the way I
yeah,
see it. And martial arts, like you previously mentioned, it was sort of like the movie Bruce would have wanted to see. It's like it's so technical in martial arts that I think if you want to compare it to anything with styles and fight scenes, Game of Death meets Enter the Dragon, sort of boosted with the adrenaline of the raid.
Yeah, mate, that is such a compliment. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, that's great. God, I feel like the world was robbed of what Master Bruce could have given us. Um, it baffles me to this day why, because I think he was also meant to have the lead role in the Kung Fu series, and that would have been amazing if he did that. And I think Game of Game of Death potentially would have been maybe his greatest film if he was able to finish it, because I was always like, what would we have seen from him if he got to finish Game of Thrones? And it would have been a martial arts masterpiece.
Game of Death, do you mean?
You know,
Game of Thrones?
yeah, sorry, Game of Thrones. God, sorry, my
Bruce on the
bad.
Dragon?
That's another show I do like. I do love Game of Thrones, but yeah, no, but Game of Death. Yeah, sorry. Absolutely, I think that would have been a masterpiece, a masterpiece from Bruce. And if the world had that from him, that would have been another iconic film that would have just been timeless, absolutely timeless. So look, if I can just have a slither of the honor that he would have had by doing that, and with life after fighting, that's a huge honor for me. But yeah, I think, and for you to say that he would have been happy with this film, maybe he's looking down from from up there and saying, hey, "Good job, Brent." So that would be nice. Yeah, think like that. But yeah, look, absolutely, absolutely. I think being able to, amalgamate all those different systems, because that was Bruce Lee's philosophy. That was his Jeet Kune Do. And he brought the systems that worked. He utilized what was effective. He discarded what wasn't. He was way ahead of his time. And I guess you could say he was the grandfather of mixed martial arts, of bringing together things to a seamless integration, and forming his own very practical system. So I think, I think he would have been pleased with what we've got,
Like the character of Alex is so likable and relatable. Is this a character you would continue on with, or is this just got a nice place on the shelf as a one and done?
That's a good question. I think from a lot of the personal messages, and it's hard, I can't actually keep up with them all, because we've had it from all over the world. And look, a lot of people have been watching it through pirated sites, and which is flattering, but it's also not the greatest, because it does affect future film making. But the response and everything, and talking about how much they like the character of Alex, it's definitely on the cards to bring him back again in a sequel. It won't be the next film, but I think there's one or two that we have to do before we return to see what Alex is. But there's already a bit of an outline for how he makes his return. But he seemed to be pretty favorable with people, and they want to see more of him. And the name Alex Faulkner, I'm pretty sure, Jeff, it's going to make a return.
Well, let's hope so, because it's a character that you want to follow. You want to see where he goes next. That whole universe is open, really, isn't it? Like any door you can go through.
Absolutely. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff and a lot of different directions, but I think there's one in particular which we're going to go in, and I don't want to give too much away. You might drop a little bit of a hint in here or there, but I think I'll save it. But there is one particular direction I think we're going to go next, and it's going to be a little surprising. Let's say it's going to be a little surprising. It'll be like, oh, really? That's what they did to him after this, So we'll just leave it at that until it comes out, Jeff.
You're going to put him in prison, aren't you?
I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say.
Can't beat a good prison movie.
Oh dear, it's a pretty Pretty good guess there, Jeff.
Um, so after Life After Fight, are we going to see more action from you? Because you set the bar high for action. Like at the start of the year, we had some really good action films, and you know, actually 2024, I'm not going to lie, has been brilliant for action films, and you've kind of set the bar with like martial arts action at the minute. Like I don't think there's been one that tops this so far.
Oh, thank you, mate. Thank you. Yeah, look, I think just back to what we're trying to create through the company Spinning Plates is our motto is high drama, high action. We want to try and just bring a bit of heart and soul to action movies. So it's not just about one-dimensional characters or just stories just for like superfluous action. We want to be in touch with like meaning and have stakes and have good actors and good solid performances behind it all and try and bring it all together. It's definitely going to be action. I wish I did this 10 years ago. The mistake I made was listening to people, everyone who said, no, don't do it. Oh, you can't do it. Oh, this, oh, that, every reason why it won't work. But I just got to the point where the one reason, which was enough for me, was because I want to do it.
Yeah.
I've left it, waited, whether you're listening to people who are managing your career or people around you who are things, supposing to, be bringing you projects or whatnot. At some point, you just have to say, well, enough. I don't like what's out there. Nothing's exciting me. I want to do something like this. And if it wasn't coming, it was like it was on me to create it, to make the opportunity for myself. So we did it. We had some great actors come on board and support. Had some great crew come on support from our sound design to our music composer to our amazing editor and DOP to the producers that came on board with me. And we formed the new company Spinning Plates. And yeah, we're going to be focusing on high drama, high action movies. We want to get the ball rolling. We want to pump out another film as soon as possible. And we want to keep going with them because we're only going to get better, Jeff. We're going to get better and better. The next movie is going to be better. We don't want to rest on what we've done and say, oh, it's not, we'll work harder. We'll train harder for it. We'll try and lift up the budget. We'll make sure we get the best actors that we can possibly get. And we won't do anything half-assed. We're not about, I don't want to try and get into the formula with a lot of Western action movies where, they're flying like a big A-lister, for 2 days, pay them 3/4 of the budget and they just, pretty much read their lines off a cue card and then take off. And then you're left to make the film in 10 days with a minuscule budget because you needed a name to get the pre-sales and whatnot. That to me is a recipe for disaster because at that point, you don't really care about film. You're just making it as a commodity, just to package together and quickly sell it. And we never set out to do that, nor will we compromise in the future to do that. That's not to say that, we will absolutely be open to bringing, bigger name stars in, but we will not compromise on the effort and the tenacity and how much we care about what we're making and what we put out, because film is forever. Movies are forever. Yeah. I don't want to look back in 20 years' time and look back at some of the projects that I've done, that I've been right at the helm of with like directing or writing or producing. I don't want to look at anything that I've done at that level and be not proud of it. I can look back at Life After Fighting and know unequivocally that I gave it my all, that I pushed myself to the brink of exhaustion. I've thought out everything I was doing to the best of my ability. I gave it everything I had. And the audience deserve that. Because if you make a movie and you're half-assed about it, just throw it together, the editing and stuff, and then you ask the audience to really invest their time and, their emotions and viewing pleasure into it, they're not stupid. People know. But if you've invested everything you can into a film and then you say, hey, please come and have a look at this. Invest your time into it. Then if you've invested everything, then it's okay for you to ask them to invest. But if you haven't, then why should the audience invest in you? You know what I mean? So that's very important to me, to our whole team, that we will never do anything less than our best. I can't promise that it's always going to be, because we don't know what the future holds. That's always going to. We hope that it always turns out amazing, and that's what we will endeavor to do. But the only thing, as I said, the only thing that we can promise is that we will never half-ass it, and every film that we do moving forward, we will give it everything we've got.
That's good to hear because, like you pointed out, so many movie companies now are flying in a big star and putting them on the front cover, marketing it as their film, and you may be lucky if you get 10 minutes of them on the screen.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think that's just a recipe for disaster. And it makes the world look unfavorably at Western action films.
Yeah.
It makes them, because we look at the Asian genre, that's seen as sorry, not the Asian genre, the Asian martial arts films are seen a little bit differently to what we do in the West. And it doesn't have to be the case. I mean, growing up, like, Asian cinema was a huge influence in my life, from everything from the Run Run Shaw brothers to Golden Harvest to everything Jackie Chan did, and of course Master Bruce. So they were major influences in my life, and you could see just through the technical and the amount of shooting and, like, just the amount of effort that went into that. And then, unfortunately, in Western movies, though, even recently I was watching a movie, it's pretty much an A-lister, trying to do a little bit of martial arts. And it's just not quite for me, because martial arts is so ingrained within my life. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's great for trying, but you've probably done, a couple of months of martial arts training, and I'm not really buying it. You're a great actor. I love you as an actor. But there's just something missing when they're trying to do the martial arts. And that's, again, I think that's a flaw in Western action cinema. And that's a flaw that I don't, because I am a martial artist, and I did study acting at university and the private college here in Australia. So I'm also an acting teacher, Jeff. And I've had quite a few good students who have worked with me privately for acting and whatnot. But one thing the martial arts, just to regress for a minute, the martial arts taught me, when I first started getting into acting, I did a summer conservatory in New York, and I realized I knew nothing about it after it. All the playwrights and everything was coming to me, the voice, the movement. I was like, whoa, I didn't realize it was this complex. So when I came back to Australia, and I went to university late. I went just around my mid-20s. So I auditioned for one of the top drama schools and got in, and spent 3 years there, and then also another couple of years at a Sanford Meisner acting school called the Actors Pulse here in Sydney. And then even when I was in the United States, continued to study with some really, really good teachers. So the acting side of things was always very, very important to me, but then so was the martial arts. And if you look at I ended up on Days of Our Lives for a couple of years. A lot of the movies I'd done didn't have any martial arts in them. But I did do Force of Execution and Maximum Conviction, which has a little bit, but he was more of a soldier. And even The Last Ship with TNT, he was more of a soldier, and that was a post-apocalyptic TV show. It wasn't necessarily a martial arts show, but I think this is the first full-on pure martial arts movie that I have done. So for me, it means a hell of a lot. And I think, I think we succeeded in bringing some good performance, good drama with high level action and marrying it together. And we didn't have the budget that John Wick has, or, some of these big blockbusters. We didn't have the budget, but I think the equalizer was the level of action we were able to bring and the performances from all the actors. I mean, when you just look at them, some of them are heartbreaking. Victor, the guy who plays Victor, Luke Ford, he's a ACCT two-time award-winning actor. He's brilliant. Annabelle Stevenson was phenomenal. She broke your heart. Cassie, she gave everything to that role. Even Ariel in the cage, when she's shaking the cage and she was just crying her eyes out, the whole set was speechless. after she did that. Everyone was just stopped. I couldn't even talk. I was choked up because this little girl just shaking the cage and crying. No one expected that. I had a little talk to them as the director saying, okay, so this is your one and only chance to escape. Okay, so once you realize that there's an opportunity to be saved, you have to yell out, you have to do whatever you can because this opportunity might not ever come again. And then what we got was just gold. So I'm just like the actors and the cast, I think I was really blessed because they all invested so much, you know, and Mike Duncan too, bloody titan of a Milan. I mean, when he died, that was another time. When he got his throat dragged across the glass, everyone just they
Yeah,
were so happy to see him die. And he's the nicest guy. But just so much emotion, so much going on behind his eyes. It was fantastic. And Samuel too, Ethan Brown, he's currently on Home and Away as a series regular. And just because of time constraints, we had to really bring down his first scene in the movie. But that was also heartfelt and stuff. There was just so much good stuff from all the actors, and then just all the stunt guys and everything that we took some shots, we took some big hits. And you know, a lot of those push kicks and axe kicks, you know, a lot of the body shots, you know, we were taking them, you know what I mean? Because we really wanted to honor what we were doing, honor the people like, you know, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, who really put themselves through the ringer back in the day, which by a lot of today's standards, that's like a lot of CGI. Oh, if the punch misses, it's okay, just CGI it, you know. Oh, don't touch to the body, don't do this, you know. But you know, as I said, we really put ourselves through the ringer because we wanted to give everyone all we could, and we wanted to give them the very best. Because if someone's going to, you know, sit down and outlay a couple of hours of their time to watch your movie, you know, they deserve your best effort.
I agree. Um, and the one thing thought about the whole time when watching this was, this is like your Stallone movie. You starred, you wrote, and you directed. And see, when Sly does that, it's always a winning formula. And that's what, you know, you've brought one of the pinnacle of martial arts movies. I haven't actually enjoyed a martial arts movie as much as I did this one.
Oh mate, that means a lot, Jeff. That really does. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't really mentioned Stallone, but man, like the Rocky movies, the Rambo movies growing up, that that heart and soul of Western action movies, that's what they should be. Because how much time did Stallone put into the boxing choreography? I know for a fact, you know, Dolph Lundgren hit him so hard he put him in hospital in the
Yeah.
chest. I think it was, yeah. So, you know, and there were times where, you know, they were like some of the times, even when he's moving forward, coming forward, and Apollo's jabbing, he's touching his forehead.
Yeah,
You
you
know
can
what I
see.
mean?
Got it.
Yeah, you can see it. And that was back then. There was no CGI back then, you know? But you know, the amount of time and effort that they put into shooting those and choreographing those boxing scenes, that was investment. That was total investment. And Sylvester Stallone, I mean, God, even to this day, I'm watching him on The King of Tulsa, and I just love him. You know, he's just such a huge, prominent figure in my life from when I was a kid. I never forget how excited I was, Jeff, when Rocky Four was at the cinema. You know, and I was going to watch it. I woke up that morning and I was like, yes, Rocky Four. And those movies, the effect and how they made me feel, you know, and if I could just, as I said before, just if I could recreate a slither of that through my stuff, you know, I would be a very happy man, you know. But yeah, Stallone, mate, if he ever happens to listen to this, probably not, of course, but who knows? You never know, right, Jeff? Just thank you, mate. Thank you for your films and just everything that he's done. I've been a huge fan of, you know.
I remember. Do you remember Stallone sort of went on a lull for a while, and then he come back with Rambo, and then it would come back with Rocky Balboa, sorry, and everyone doubted him, and it was a huge success. And then he
Yeah.
says, "I'm gonna do another Rambo," and everyone doubted him, and it was probably the best action movie of 2008. And
Yep.
then at the age of like 60, he done the Expendables and created a whole new franchise, and his career took off again. Like, you couldn't really write that.
The guy, Jeff, like everything you said, like spot on. He's a legend. I mean, God, how could you not have just such a, profound respect for him? Because I sure as hell do. It's just exactly what you said. I remember when he had that down because I was at my cousin's house and she was older and she had a boyfriend and they said something like, oh, about Stallone, like, oh, everything he touches just seems to flop lately. And I was so offended by it. I was a kid, but I was like, what are you talking about? I was like really, really offended by it. And to me, even though, now I can, all right, those movies didn't do too well for him, but me personally, I loved everything that he did. I just always loved it, People didn't like Judge Dredd. I liked it. People didn't like Demolition Man. I loved it. I don't think for me personally, anything he's ever done, I actually went, because it was always him. And going back, whether you're looking at the movie Over the Top, the arm wrestling movie, whether you're looking at Cobra, it was just, to me, they were all like nuggets of gold that impacted my life in the best possible way growing up, and even to today, as I said, now I'm watching him in The King of Tulsa. I'm waiting for the new season to come out. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was a huge, huge impact in my life. And just the fact that he wrote, directed, he took matters into his own hands. Even just, I watched an interview with him maybe 2 days ago, and he's saying, "Oh, mostly he was getting interviewed. I'm not sure if it was Letterman or no, I think it was someone else, but it was on him close up. He goes, mostly I was just background, so I needed to write something for myself." And every time I just hear him say that, and this is, I mean, it was back in the 70s, this interview, but I stopped and I watched it. I think it was on Facebook, and it's just, it takes courage. It takes courage. And he had the courage to step up and to do it. And he probably had a million naysayers, people saying to him, "Oh, don't do it. Who do you think you are to be able to do this?" But he went ahead and did it. And he is one of the most prominent Western action movie figures in the world, if not the most.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, forever, he'll be up on a pedestal.
So you've got your own production company, on the grow here. You've got Life After Fighting. There's going to be another martial arts movie coming up. I can feel it. I can sense it. You sort of want to bring in likes of Michael Jai White, Scott Adkins, Alain Moussey, these ones that are sort of, they are the end thing at the minute. You want to
Yeah.
bring them into the fold and go toe to toe with some of them guys?
Yeah, really interested in working with Scott. Scott and I have spoken on a number of occasions. I really like Scott. I think there's just a good vibe when we talk, and there's been a few times in the past where we were potentially going to work together, but I was for a number of years on the TNT show, The Last Ship, so some scheduling didn't always permit that. But yeah, I'm really interested in working with Scott. I don't really know Elaine or Michael Jai White. A lot of my other interest is, I love the difference, especially the Filipino martial arts and the Silat styles and training in them. I do have an interest in working with some of the guys from the Raid, only because I'm very interested in the style, in the movement of Silat, because I see ways where through the Silat I can incorporate a lot of the other stuff with the Jiu-Jitsu and the Taekwondo, and seeing how I can like potentially choreograph and seamlessly integrate my style of bringing all of it together into their style of Silat. That's just something that interests me more as a martial artist too. I'm pretty open to working with anyone as long as it's the right kind of project. I just want to be really kind of particular with the stuff that moves forward. I have a great agent, Erin, over at Morrissey, and she always said to me, it's the jobs you say no to are just as important as the jobs you say yes to. So yeah, but look, hey, as I said, for the right project, I'm open to work with all those guys. But I think I can, I guess, probably with Scott, hopefully before we turn 65. we can make something work, because there's a similarity with our styles and stuff. And yeah, I'd like to put it to the test and see what we can come up with. But we have to use a lot of speed, Jeff. I want to see
It is
that.
key.
Exactly. That just has that dynamic approach, and I'm sure Scott will be fine with that, mate. So we'll see what happens in the future.
But you set the bar high for speed, let's face it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you slow down, we're gonna be like, really, the headline will be Bren Foster has slowed down.
That's a champagne problem. It's better than saying you're not quick enough. So yeah, no, it's good.
Bren, I really appreciate your time coming to talk to me. The movie is brilliant. Can't really describe the movie without just saying it's an instant 5 stars. So anyone and everyone go see it. Please don't pirate it.
Yeah,
Try and
that,
find it somewhere unless you are really, 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 really broke. But then if you're really broke and you pirate in, you can afford the internet. So buy it.
that's a good way of putting it. Oh dear.
But I really appreciate your time, Bren. Life After Fighting is unreal. Thank you for giving us this movie, and I wish you the best of luck with the production company and your next projects.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure, mate, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, take care and don't be a stranger.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again soon, mate.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Bren.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.